Hello and welcome to the AFC Preview Show for 2022 here on Nuts and Bolts Sports. I am your host, Jeff Barnes, and we're going to be talking about the American Football Conference all night long, division by division, breaking it down with three of our analysts here at Nuts and Bolts Sports. So without further ado, one by one, I'm going to bring them on for you to get to meet them. We're going to start off with some of our newcomers. Start off with Charlie Gross. Welcome to the show, Charlie.
Hey, thanks for having me. I look forward to talking about this amazing football conference, and I'm excited to be here.
Well, listen, we're glad to have you. It's our first time working together, so I'm excited about that. And I'm also excited about this young man who's also new to the show, Melo. Melo, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Just like Charlie, I'm excited to be here, happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to talking some AFC football.
Absolutely, man. Listen, like I said, you're two of the newer guys that I haven't had a chance to work with before, so I'm excited about this. It's going to be a great show. And without further ado, the last member of the crew tonight, the most famous name of Nuts and Bolts Sports, as I'm talking about, Mr. Keith Richards. Keith, long time no see, man.
Long time no see.
Yeah, I know, man. The no huddle necessary days were fun, man. I miss it, but unfortunately, schedule conflicts prevent me from being on.
Hey, I get it. I haven't been on in a while.
Yeah.
I had to give other people a chance to win. I can't win.
Well, it's almost time for some NFL football. Training camps have been underway. We're 1 week into the preseason. First set of cuts already happened. A lot going on. So if we're going to start this off, we're going to start this off with the division that everybody's been talking about. Let's start this off with the AFC West. So we all know, everybody says it's the best division in football. We know about the offseason. We're going to look at the standings from last year. We'll recap those real quick. So that's the North, sorry. All right. So we know that it was the Chiefs in first place. They won a division. Raiders got into the playoffs. Tough loss. They took to Cincinnati in the first round. San Diego, Los Angeles, I keep calling them San Diego, 40 years of San Diego, had their chance to get in. Their head coach kind of played them out of it. And then Denver had a rough year last year, but on the rebound, Russell Wilson in town. So let's start this off with a guy who covers said division. Let's start this off with Keith. Keith, what is your outlook on the West this year?
It's going to be an absolute bloodbath. You have 4 top 15 quarterbacks in a division, which you can't say about any other division. I mean, there's definitely divisions that have maybe a couple top 10, but there's not any that have 4 top 15 quarterbacks. With the exception of maybe the Raiders, you got the Chiefs. You have teams that have really good defenses. The Raiders defense is not anything that people should try to skip over. Everyone knows the Broncos defense is good. The Chargers got their defense better, which is going to be needed because there's just star power on offense in all of these teams. Russell Wilson, Broncos are going to miss Tim Patrick, which is a huge miss with a torn ACL, but they still have Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler. Got Devontae Adams going to the Raiders. You got Keenan Allen, Mike Williams returning with the Chargers. And even though the Chiefs lost Tyreek Hill, they're still loaded at the position at receiver. Juju's joining the team. The law firm, as you say, Valdez Scantley went to the Chiefs. There is not going to be an easy win in a division game in that division at all.
Indeed. Charlie, you got anything to add to this one?
Yeah, I think it's obviously, to me, the toughest division in the AFC for sure. I think there's certainly a scenario where all 4 teams could make the playoffs, although I feel like the Raiders are probably the weakest a little bit, and it's certainly been an arms race. But I think each team certainly has some flaws, with maybe the Chiefs having the least amount of flaws. But, you look at the Raiders, I don't know how great their defense is. They didn't get Devontae Adams, obviously. You look at the Chargers, and as you mentioned before, I think they're a little weak up the middle. And then you've got their coach who, is willing to coach them out of games and be too stringent, I think, in his belief in, fourth downs. And it's weird because As a Bills fan, Bills are the second leading team in the league in going for it on fourth down, and I think that Brandon Staley is crazy and he's hurting his team, and you can do that too much, and I understand that the way it works is you don't make one, miss one, make one, miss one. You tend to string together misses, and then you tend to string together makes, but you've got to understand your situation better, and you can't just be committed to that for just like, well, this is what I said I'm going to do, so I'm going to do it, and who cares? You've got to read the room a little bit, be a little bit more cautious at times. And Denver, I think they lost a few things maybe, but they got Russell Wilson. I think that it's really up to Denver and I would say the Chiefs in terms of talent on the rosters. And I think at the end of the day, those are going to be the two teams battling. But you're right, total bloodbath in this division. I'm glad that they're going to beat each other up. I hope they all just go 10-7 or 11-6.
All right, Melo, what do you got for us?
Oh man, I'm definitely looking forward to this season. Watching the AFC West, it's definitely going to be very competitive. I'm looking at the defenses. I'm a huge defense guy, and I believe the best defense is going to, sustain the challenges with that division. And with that being said, I will have to go with the LA Rams. The Chargers. With that, I like their defense out of the other teams, over KC and Denver and Oakland as well. Josh Herbert as the quarterback. This is year 2. New coach. Oh, no, year 3, sorry. New coach. Brandon Staley, I'm sure he learned from his mistakes last year. So hopefully we see a better coach showing more leadership instead of putting his guys under the fire like that with a lot of bad calls on fourth downs. Definitely looking forward to seeing Judy with Russell Wilson. That is definitely going to be huge. This is probably going to be one of Russ's best receivers, maybe, since he's been in the league. No disrespect to the other guys that he had up there in Seattle. Metcalf came on late. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Russ in Denver and with that passing game. And their defense is still legit as well. For the Raiders, for me with the Raiders, it's always hit or miss. It's like they look good on paper, then the season comes, regardless if it's injuries, just failed execution. Something always seems to go wrong for the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders, that is. But I'm definitely looking forward to the Derek Carr and Devontae Adams combination. That is definitely going to be exciting. I'd like to see how Adams' production is this year with Carr, now that he's not with Aaron Rodgers anymore. However, I do believe we still going to see some solid production from Devontae and probably better production from Derek Carr, better throws. He had in the past, he's made a lot of careless throws in the past. So with that receiving core out there, Oakland definitely should make some noise. And then KC, we all know what KC do and what they bring. Their weakness, we know, is their defense. However, with Pat Mahomes as their quarterback, Andy Reid calling plays, I believe they continue to find a way to help the defense where they're weak at.
Definitely, and bring the whole crew back together. So I think we saw the arms race in this division in the offseason. I think Denver is definitely an improved team. I think with the new leadership, an offensive coach as opposed to the defensive coach, they're a very, very improved team. They're going to be a team that's going to be a problem for a lot of teams because they had defense before. I don't think defense was ever their problem. The problem was on offense. It was a very conservative philosophy. We've seen the improvement at the quarterback position. And I think overall, you're going to see a team there that's going to definitely compete with the rest of them. We saw what the moves the Raiders made. We saw the moves that the Chargers made. Okay, what a pass rush they're going to have now. Khalil Mack and Bosa on the outside. Also, look at the other side of the coin. Okay, yes, Tariq Hill is gone, but the steady receivers, okay, that they have now with the Kansas City Chiefs, Valdez-Scantling, and the rest of that crew that came aboard, all right? You're looking at a crew. Yes, they still have a couple of big playmakers on that team. We know about Kelsey being Kelsey. But overall, I think what you're going to see is a steady receiving crew in Kansas City, something that he's going to be able to look forward to instead of having spurts. This guy makes a couple of big plays and he disappears. This guy makes a couple of big plays and he disappears. I think it'll be a steady offense in Kansas City going forward, making him a little more dangerous, in my opinion. So we wrapped that one up faster than we thought. Who do you guys have winning the division? How about that?
I think I'll still go with KC. I think, like I said, I think they still have some weaknesses, but at the end of the day, they do have Pat Mahomes, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and we'll see. There are a lot of weird things happen, right? You lose weird games sometimes, but I'll go with KC.
I'm going KC as well. I don't believe another team is ready to knock them off that pedestal in the AFC West.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of the reasons you said, I mean, there's a lot of people down on KC just because they lost Tyreek Hill and their defense. But year in, year out, their defense makes timely plays when it matters. They might be a sieve in a regular season, but when it comes playoff time, they make those plays. And then, honestly, I feel like we'll see a lot more growth out of Pat Mahomes now that he doesn't have that cheat code in Tyreek Hill. It'll force him to go through his progressions. We saw that they started to do better when the teams were playing that cover 2. They started to figure that out. And they're not going to get that look as much with Tyreek Hill gone. So it gives them a lot more options, I think. So until someone knocks the Chiefs off and prove that they can be beaten, I'm just going to pick the Chiefs until there's significant difference or Pat Mahomes is not there.
Yeah, I think we've seen Pat Mahomes already this offseason. I don't think he is too concerned right now with losing Tyreek Hill, especially with the guys he got, with the money he got off that big deal. Overall, I think we're looking at it. Kansas City's still a team to beat, but they have definitely closed the gap behind in more than one team at that. So let's move on over now to the AFC North. Okay, so this division, on the other hand, a little less competitive than what we saw last year from the West. One team basically dominated it. One team ran away with it, almost had home field. They basically did have home field throughout, but was ceremoniously exit in their first playoff game. We're talking about the Tennessee Titans. Now, take a look at the standings from last year. As you see, they ran away with this division. 2 teams drafting in the top 5 of the draft. So we started off last time with Charlie. Melo.
The AFC South. This is a division. I like this division for the simple fact that it could be anyone's division almost every year. Now that the Texans have moved past they run, the Colts moved past they run. Tennessee is trying to take over. But I don't know if I ready to believe in Tennessee like that. I'm going to go with the Colts. I like the Colts coming out that division. I like what they did this offseason. I added Matt Ryan, let Carson Wentz go. I believe Matt Ryan is an addition to there, even though he's up in age. But I believe Matty Ice still has some good years left in him. And with that receiving core and Jonathan Taylor in the backfield running, I believe will take a lot of pressure off of Matt Ryan. Probably something he didn't have in Atlanta. Even though he did have a couple good backs in Atlanta, I just don't believe that they were Jonathan Taylor's on his level. Jacksonville, very young, a lot of youth there, new coach. But I believe that they're up and coming. They got some things to work out. They lost Miles Jack to Pittsburgh. Big blow right there. But this is just, I believe, a division that's just fighting to be relevant right now.
All right, Charlie.
Well, to me, this is probably the weakest division in the conference. I think that the Colts are pretty much the team to beat, and they've done pretty good under Frank Reich. They don't really seem to have much emphasis on getting wide receivers, which I guess is fine with that good of a running game and a defense and an offensive line. And the real questions here are really the rest of the teams. I think Jacksonville's fascinating because they're rebuilding after obviously some horrible stuff last year. And I think there's questions. I don't know how many people are talking about this, but I think there's questions surrounding them in terms of Doug Peterson. He gets a lot of credit, and maybe rightfully so, for what the Eagles did. But then you have to go back to the end of the Eagles. And you listen to podcasts when he was eventually fired, and all this stuff starts to come out about how, well, they weren't the same once Frank Reich left, because Frank Reich was actually the one calling plays, and how they schemed the offense and what they did and didn't allow him to do. And I understand, they haven't put some of those restrictions on him in Jacksonville, but how good of a play caller, if he's even going to call plays, is Doug Peterson? If you lose Frank Reich and then can't call plays and your offense goes down to Philadelphia, to me, that's a problem. So I'm going to be watching that. I'm going to be watching their rebuild. And then you move over to Tennessee, and Tennessee, I think, has gotten by for a long time with smoke and mirrors. They have a pretty good running game. They have an average quarterback, and they've had a pretty good defense. But to be completely honest, John Robinson, I believe, was crying at the season-ending press conference, which is totally fine. He knew he was going to have to break this team up, and he's going to be crying a lot more because, quite frankly, they're not going to win that many games. You go over to the Texans, another fascinating franchise in terms of what's going on behind the scenes there, if you want to call it fascinating. And they're rebuilding, and I think they're actually kind of rebuilding if there's a right way to do it. Do it that way. Take it slow. Use your draft picks. But again, what's going on behind the scenes there? Who's really in charge? How does that impact the team? So to me, the Colts are basically running away with this division, and you've got a couple teams hopefully coming up, and I think you got one team coming back down.
All right, Keith.
Yeah, I feel like it's it is probably the weakest division in the AFC, mainly because it's so transitive right now. The only truly established team at the moment is the Colts. Even though Matt Ryan is going to be coming in at his first year, they still have one of the best backs in the league in Jonathan Taylor. They have some established receivers like Michael Pittman. The Texans are probably years away from being relevant again, and they're a rebuilding process. The Titans, I wouldn't really say they're in a rebuild yet, but I give it 6 games before Malik and because I just don't think Ryan is that good. With Trevor Lawrence going to look a lot better this season, but still think they're a year away. The running back, Travis Etienne, is going to be a big help.
We kind of lost the last minute or two of that. You repeat the last part you were saying. I think Keith's frozen. I agree with you guys. I think, although I am not sold on the Colts winning this division, I still think Tennessee is going to be the lead dog. I think the Colts will be very improved, better quarterback play. We're going to see, I think the biggest issue with the Colts, when you talk about it, they had a better arm in Matt Ryan. However, you talk about a guy who's still not mobile. Okay, pocket passers have the biggest issue in this league. When you can't escape the pass rush gets better every year, faster, stronger, bigger. So overall, I think that's going to be the issue for the Colts. Is they're going to have a great running game. They're going to do a great job on play action. I don't see that their receiving core is going to be able to overwhelm defenses on their own. I think he's going to be able to do a lot of things, take advantage of certain matchups. But I think overall, it's their running game and their defense are going to be the things that keep them in the hunt versus the Titans. I do see an improved Jaguars team because, one, you're going to have a locker room that's a lot more cohesive. Yes, he did lose the locker room in Philadelphia, but he was able to lead it for a couple of years before he lost his message. Sometimes you lose your message as a head coach after a couple of years. Guys tune you out. They move on to other guys. It happens. Some guys get a fresh start and can find that magic again. I think he'll get them close to 5. Well, there's no 500 anymore with 17-game season. I think they'll be just under the winning 9 games this year. They have them at 8 and 9 was my bold prediction for the Jaguars this year. I think Etienne gives them 2 backs in the backfield that are a threat. I think their receiving core is going to come in and make waves. With all the additions that they had there, the defense was solid last year. I think it got even better this year. So I think overall, when you look at Jacksonville, you have a team with a head coach that's capable, unlike last year when they brought in a head coach who had no business being there. Better talent, better team overall. I think they'll be closer to the top. I think Houston falls to the bottom of the division. I just think that they're still too many pieces away from getting and competing for a winning record. I think overall they'll be a team that's going to be gritty. They're going to fight. They're going to win some games, but they're not going to be enough to match up with those guys. So Keith is having technical issues, so he'll be back. So right now what we're going to do is it's almost time for that anyway. So we're going to take our break. Come back. We got 2 more divisions to run through. You're watching the AFC Preview Show here on Nuts and Bolts Sports. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
Enjoy 40% off site-wide. Vitable takes the guesswork out of feeling good. Get your own personalized daily vitamin packs safely delivered to your doorstep every month. Take their online quiz to find out which vitamins and minerals can support your personal needs based on your own diet and lifestyle. Hashtag only what you need, nothing that you don't. All vitamins are manufactured in Australia at the highest quality standard. Ingredients come in the best form for their absorption by your body. Enjoy 40% off site-wide using code NBS40 at checkout. Pickup is a fan engagement platform that aims to build communities and turn the biggest headlines in sports into free-to-play props while rewarding fans for their hot sports takes. You've likely seen their props on Nuts and Bolts Sports and some of your other favorite online publishers and leagues like USA Today, NASCAR, Flow Sports, and others. Simply make your pick on the Pickup prop and verify your pick by entering your phone number, which you will use to track your picks. Accumulate points and exchange for prizes in their marketplace. Their merch ranges from Fanatics gift cards, cross nets just in time for summer, dugout mugs, and more. Make your picks ahead of the draft now.
All right, so we are back, and we have 2 more divisions to talk about. All right, we've talked about the West, in case you missed it. We've just talked about the AFC South. Let's talk about that brutal division up north, the AFC North. So I'm going to throw that one up there for you in case you're wondering who finished first there last year. It was those Cincinnati Bengals that ended up in the Super Bowl in tragic loss, in their opinion, to the Rams. Finished 10-7 last year, less than half a game ahead of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who got into the playoffs at 9-7-1. Cleveland, we saw the finish that they had to their season at 8-9. Baker Mayfield out, into Deshaun Watson for how long, we don't know. And of course, Lamar Jackson missed a good portion of the season last year with his ankle injury, and the Ravens suffered for it, along with half of their offense that was on injured reserve. So with those guys coming back, with the changes we've seen in Pittsburgh, who's the quarterback? We don't know. We know who's the quarterback in Cleveland. For how long? We don't know. Joe Burrow hasn't played yet because he's still healing. How long is he going to be out? We don't know. A lot of questions about this division. Keith, let us know what you're thinking, because I've got nothing right now.
I think this is the division where you have the best opportunity for a team to go worst to first. I think the Bengals, when they are together and healthy, are still the best team in that division. With the receiving core they have, with Joe Burrow under center, and they did make some improvements to the offensive line, which was just atrocious last season, and they still made the Super Bowl. When all that comes together, they're a tough team to beat. But you look at the Ravens, and they just had bad luck last season. They just had injury upon injury upon injury upon injury, and despite what people might want to say off the record or anonymously about Lamar Jackson is still a very good quarterback, top 10 quarterback, possibly top 5 quarterback in the league. They're going to have some players coming back from injury. Lamar Jackson is really good. I don't know if they will win the division. It probably still is going to be the Bengals, but they easily have the best chance to go from last to first in that division. Deshaun Watson's probably going to be out for the season, deservedly so. And then there's just too much change at quarterback in Pittsburgh. I mean, right now, Trubisky's the starter. Is it going to be Pickett before the season ends? They have the best defense in the division, quite possibly the league, but they also spent next to nothing on offense. So, as much as you want to stop teams from scoring, you also have to be able to score, and they're not set up very well to do that. So I think it's a 2-team race between the Ravens and the Bengals. I think the Bengals edge it out, but the Ravens are going to be breathing down their necks really hard all season.
All right. Melo, what do you think about this division?
I know the AFC West is what it is. However, I believe this AFC North is right there when it comes to being competitive. You got a lot of great, basically every team in the AFC North plays great defense. Since Cincinnati is a good defense team, we know who Pittsburgh is defensively, Baltimore, and Cleveland as well. And each kind of tuned up or improved their defense this year. I kind of disagree a little bit with Keith when he said that the AFC North that it was open for anybody, which I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I don't believe it's Cincinnati should run away with. I believe Pittsburgh is right there with everyone. I know the quarterback situation isn't taken care of yet. However, I'm a firm believer in Mitch Trubisky. I believe Mitch has what it takes to be a good game manager. He has Najee Harris in the backfield, Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, and George Pickens is making a lot of noise, and he's looking real good and very promising. And then Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, he's definitely back on, to prove himself. He's in the contract year. So I hope he gets through the year if a deal isn't finalized before week 1, that he stays healthy so that they won't be able to use that against him. Like he said, he's definitely a top 10 quarterback in the league. He's a winner. And then we fall to Cleveland. Cleveland is one of those teams where I feel like it's always they look good on paper, but then when the season starts, they have their highs, but they have more lows than highs, and they often lose games that they should win. So, and with Deshaun Watson not being there, things is going to be, a little shaky, however, I believe they'll get through and probably finish. They probably still will finish last, but I'm looking forward to the AFC North overall. I believe it's still one of the best divisions in football.
All right, Charlie.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is probably the second most competitive division in the AFC. But again, there's a lot of teams with a lot of question marks, and they've got, a lot of decisions they have to make too coming up in the offseason. I think having Jacoby Brissett as your quarterback for basically the entire year is really going to sink, the Cleveland Browns, who probably have the most talented roster in a lot of ways, but with that type of quarterback, how far are you really going to go? They're sort of perennial underachievers when it comes to the quality of their roster compared to their record. We'll see, what's going on with the running back situation. Are they going to have the two-headed monster? Are they going to have the one-headed monster? Who really knows? I think defensively they're outstanding. You go to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's a team who never seems to have a losing record. Is this going to be the year that they finally do that. I don't know. I think back end of the defense is pretty weak. Levi Wallace is not the answer. Trust me. I think Minka's talented, but I think he misses a fair amount of tackles. And you've got my man, Mitch Trubisky at quarterback, though. So we'll see how that goes. Offensive line, I think, is a bit suspect. The wide receiver core, not great. I feel like they're going to be in that 8-9, 9-8 range. And then, you get to the Bengals, who a lot of people feel like they almost kind of lucked their way in a way to the Super Bowl. We'll see. They've certainly acted like they knew they needed to get a lot better. Offensive line, things like that. Joe Burrow, definitely a good quarterback with a lot of great wide receivers. There's no doubt about that. We'll see if they, how well they do, if they can sneak into the playoffs this year. And then you got Baltimore, and Baltimore's a team. How are they coming back from these injuries? A lot of injuries. The offense is weird, very, very weird sort of offense. And I think that plays to some of the weaknesses of their quarterback. And guys, I got to be completely honest with you. If I'm the owner of the Baltimore Ravens, I'm drafting a guy next year, and I'm letting Lamar Jackson go.
All right. Well, I want to jump back on Cleveland. We know the situation with Deshaun Watson. I wholeheartedly expect week 1 for him to be under center. And the reason being, I think this is going to end up just like Ezekiel Elliott. The NFL is going to appeal this. They're going to stretch this suspension out. They're going to go to federal court. It's going to bounce back and forth several times. There'll be injunction after injunction saying he's reinstated, he's suspended, he's reinstated. In the end, he's going to be there week 1. How long he's there after that is the question. Let's say he plays till week 3 before he's suspended again. And at that point, let's talk. Is Jacoby Brissett enough for them to make a playoff push in that division? And he's got a lot of talent. We know about the 2 backs, Chubb and Hunt. We know about the receivers. We know about Njoku at tight end, the offensive line, the defense, that rabid defensive front that they have. Overall, is that enough for them to make a playoff push with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback?
No. We look at what the NFL wants to do. We have a prime example of this in Tennessee. You can have great skill position players and Derrick Henry, and when they had A.J. Brown, but if your quarterback is not a top-tier quarterback, you're not moving forward. That's just the way it is. We see it as well in 49ers. Really good team, great skill position players, but Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback, and even though they go in and stomp Green Bay every year, I don't know how, but they do. They can't get past that because Jimmy Garoppolo was a quarterback. And Jacoby Brissett has moved around to different teams for a reason. He's just not an elite quarterback. And you don't even need to have an elite quarterback. Elite meaning top 5 or 6. You need at least a top 15 quarterback, and he is not that.
Okay. Well, you just had the hot take of the night, Charlie. Talking about letting Lamar go. You've got the chat room on fire, as you see. So let's dive into his contract situation. So you would say you let him play it out this year. You'd let him go and draft somebody else next year. What say you guys about Lamar's situation? You're muted, Melo, so if you're trying to talk, we can't hear you.
I feel I definitely disagree with that take by Charlie. I'm definitely not letting Lamar go. I don't let production go. He's an MVP. His numbers, people bring up his numbers, and for every stat where people may try to throw him underneath the bus, there's plenty of stats to put Lamar on top of the bus. So drafting a quarterback and a player in general is always risky. We know what Lamar can do. He's the winner. So I will draft another quarterback and hope that he can be half the player Lamar Jackson is. That's tough to do, So for me, I disagree with that. I'm riding Lamar, and I hope Baltimore gets the job done.
Yeah, I would echo. I think it would be an egregious mistake for them to let Lamar walk. And I'm not going to defend his faults. He definitely has his faults. There are things he can improve passing wise, but look at his offensive coordinator and Greg Roman. There's not a whole lot Greg Roman is doing in the play calling to let Lamar grow. Really, he hasn't had an opportunity to grow because that's been his coordinator his whole career. So, can he be the number one quarterback in the league? We don't know that yet because he hasn't had the chance to be so. He has been the number one quarterback in the league when he won the MVP. So imagine if he did have an offensive, progressive coach and not one back in the Stone Age, just like Greg Roman. I think it would be a mistake to let him go.
I'm going to say this. If I'm the Baltimore Ravens, I'm going to pay the man. And I'm going to tell you the reason why. You're in this situation because of Lamar Jackson. You're only a contender as long as Lamar Jackson is there. Your offensive coordinator has been in several places. The only time he succeeds is when he has a quarterback who can make plays for him in the passing game because he doesn't exactly have the greatest passing game. His passing game has never been this forte of his offense. That wasn't in San Francisco, wasn't in Buffalo. It sure as heck isn't in Baltimore. It's always his running game has been the staple of his game. It's been best. When he had Alex Smith, they were considered a grounded pound team because not even Alex Smith could save him. All right. So Greg Roman's strength is a running game, an athletic quarterback like Lamar Jackson, like Tyrod Taylor, like Colin Kaepernick made his offense go even further. Now, when you have something special, you use it until you ride it till the end. All right. You don't know what you're going to get in the draft. Honestly, there's some excellent quarterbacks in these drafts coming up. As a draft guy, I enjoy breaking them down. However, I don't see too many guys on Lamar Jackson's level. All right. So I'm going to stay with what I got. I'm going to make sure I take care of it. I'm going to continue to surround it with more talent. All right. And I'm going to try and make it where he doesn't have to run as much and save my bacon every time I call a pass play. I'm going to try and give him weapons where he can throw the ball quicker, where he can utilize them on screens, where he can do more things to get the ball out of his hands quick and let those guys do the work for him sometimes. So Lamar Jackson doesn't have to be Superman for 17 weeks of the regular season plus playoffs. So I understand exactly where you're coming from a financial standpoint, Charlie, because he's a huge risk paying him a lot of money, talking about Patrick Mahomes' money, talking about
he just keeps you in quarterback purgatory.
Yeah, well,
I mean, everyone wants to blame Greg Roman, but I hear people say all the time, well, no team knows the player better than the team that has had the player. So aren't they designing this offense based on what his best strengths are, which is throwing to the middle of the field and running? There's nobody coming out in the draft who has a better throwing potential and a little less running potential than Lamar Jackson.
I'm going to say he's had better passers, and his offense stunk every time. Well, Alex Smith was an accomplished passer before he got there in San Francisco, and
I mean they're all kind of the same guy. Right? Like Tyrod Taylor, Kaepernick, Alex Smith, they're all kind of like the same kind of guy.
I don't know. Alex Smith was.
It's not like he had like John Elway
or something. No, he didn't have John Elway.
Brian Dable didn't have a good quarterback till Josh Allen. Like, I mean, okay, I get. Like Lamar Jackson won with 3,000 passing yards and 1,200 rushing yards. That's why he's the MVP, because of the rushing yards. It wasn't because of the passing yards. It wasn't because of how well he did this or that. It's because there was the best rushing thing since Cam Newton. So, am I hitching my horse to that guy who's going to have these flaws in his passing game?
But he can pass the ball, though. He's
around him and this, that, the other, and I mean, it's like high level Andy Dalton, Kirk Cousins, QB purgatory.
I don't know about that one. I'll disagree with that one, but nevertheless, that's an interesting take, and it's definitely lit up the chat room. So you are the dude tonight. I'm telling you that right now.
Wait till we get to the AFC East.
Oh yeah. Well, it is that time. It is that time.
Of all those people named, Alex Smith, Tyrod Taylor, Andy Dalton. whoever you can name that you would say will put them in quarterback purgatory, even if you account for his rushing yards, how many of them have even been close to winning MVP? And that would be no one. So there is
because
something
of the rushing
special
yards
about him on that team. I mean, yeah,
but it was more the wins than anything else.
Yeah.
Well, like Cam Newton, he won 15-1, great defense, great running game, weakest schedule in the league. Okay.
And he's been terrible since Von Miller broke him. Lamar Jackson has gotten better every single season, despite all these flaws that everyone says he has.
Well, I think we've beat up the North enough. Let's jump over to the East because I'm really interested in what you're going to say about the East now. You've got my ears up. Here we go. So AFC East, last division of the night. And man, oh man, let's look at how that one ended up last year. So with that being said, AFC East, it was a battle between the top two teams for that division. Buffalo took it. Everybody knows about the ending for them in the playoffs, although they changed the overtime rules for them, which I don't agree with. But nevertheless, they changed it anyway. Now both teams get the ball. Everybody will complain about that when it falls through as well. Go back to my suggestion is go back to 15 minutes of overtime. But that's my opinion. But anyway, the Patriots came in second and were exited by said Buffalo Bills. Miami missed out. Everybody wants to know if Tua is the dude. They've gotten rid of their head coach, brought in a young guy. So we're going to see what Miami does this year with the addition of Tyreek Hill and some other faces. And then, of course, the New York Jets, Jets, who drafted their young phenom, and he has made more waves off the field than he has on the field this preseason, as he's already hurt. So with that being said, they are looking at the prospect of starting this season with Joe Flacco at quarterback. So I'm not even going to pick anybody. Who wants to start with this hot mess right here?
I'll start. I mean, Zach Wilson didn't make waves this offseason because he's hurt. It's because he's got that dog in him.
The way it was described, it was in other people.
We'll just leave that one. At the end of the day, I think it's still the Bills' division to lose. But outside of the Jets, who still made improvements, I just think they're still just too far away from the top. They made improvements, but they got a ways to go. The biggest improvement would be with the Dolphins getting Tyreek Hill. They still have Jalen Waddle coming back, so they should have talent around Tua. And as good as I thought Tua was coming out of the draft, I just don't know if I feel that same way now, just because even without the talent, there's just been times where he hasn't looked that great. So it's kind of up in the air. And then you have the Patriots, who probably is the least talented, or at least tied for the least talented team in the division with the Jets. But, Mac Jones came out and silenced a lot of critics. His numbers weren't fantastic, but I still thought it was a great pick when the Patriots picked him, because he is 1,000% a Bill Belichick guy. What's going to hurt is Josh McDaniels left to go coach in Las Vegas. So we'll see how Mac Jones looks without Josh McDaniels running the show on offense. A lot of reports are he's looked good in camp this year, but there's just too much firepower on the Bills. I just don't see the Patriots being able to do what they did again last season, and I just don't think the Dolphins improved that much to be able to dethrone the Bills. The Bills' biggest issue is going to be getting out of their own way when it comes to big-time moments, because as good as that defense was, there was no excuse for what happened to them in the playoffs to happen. What was it, like 13 seconds, 20 seconds? That was just ridiculous. And as much as you could say it may have been a blip, we'll see. We'll see. But I think they should win this division going away.
I'm piggybacking off of Keith. with that, that's the Bills division. I actually had the Bills going to the Super Bowl this year. I believe that they have made the necessary steps since Josh Allen been there. Great coaching, defense. They picked up Cook in the running game for the run game this year, which I believe is going to be a good addition for the offense and for Josh Allen. So he don't have to run as much, and not bringing Lamar back into this conversation, but Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, to me, are the same, similar quarterbacks. Josh Allen probably can throw the ball better for sure, but Josh Allen scrambles and runs just as much almost as Lamar Jackson. So I just don't see how people can be a fan of Josh Allen and not a fan of Lamar Jackson when Lamar Jackson actually is a good passer. But back to Buffalo in the AFC East. That's Buffalo's division, and I believe it's everybody else. I'm going to believe in the coaching of Bill Belichick. Regardless, his roster, like he said, it's not that talented. But Bill Belichick always seems to get the most out of his players, and I don't see that changing. Also, like he said, Mac Jones, he's the perfect quarterback for Bill Belichick and the Patriots. But losing Josh McDaniels is definitely going to be a huge blow because he seems to have a way of building confidence in his quarterbacks and stuff as well. And then Miami, how we said that Pat Mahomes would be able to thrive still without Tyreek Hill. I don't see that being the case for Tua. I was never really a fan of Tua. He was good in college, but I never really saw him being much in the league. I believe putting Tyreek Hill around him will help him, but I don't believe that's going to be enough down in Miami. And then with the Jets, the Jets is just going to be the Jets so far. They had that great run under Rex Ryan and things of that nature, but I don't really – and the defense have improved. I will say that. Their defense improved some, but I don't see them making too much noise at all.
Well, I guess that means it's my turn. So
oh yeah.
Here we go. The Jets, not impressed. I know that a lot of people are fans of what Joe Douglas has done. I think he's done some things. I think that trading up for a guard and then drafting a tackle who can't keep his weight is probably not great. And it all really depends for them on the quarterback. And, even though Zach Wilson may not miss any games, he's still missing 4 weeks of valuable time for him. Like, this is a valuable time for him. So we'll see. Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, you can draft as many good draft picks as you want, and everyone can be super excited about your draft. It doesn't matter if Zach Wilson's trash. So that's what they have to hope that they got right and what they have to continue to develop. Going to Miami, Miami is an extremely talented roster. And with a better quarterback, I think I and a lot of Bills Mafia would be very afraid of the Miami Dolphins. But we're not, because the quarterback to this point has not shown anything. Now, I think that the Miami Dolphins have done him extremely dirty, and I think that there's a lot of dysfunction in their front office. For Tua to really be elite, he needs to be elite mentally and accuracy-wise, just like a guy like Peyton Manning and Drew Brees was, and I don't know if he's capable of that. I think that there are areas on the Dolphins where they actually have a better roster than the Bills, for sure. I think the secondary is a little bit better than the Bills. Maybe the linebackers are probably equal. Defensive line, maybe you'll give that to the Bills. So Miami's a very scary team if they can get that type of production out of Tua, and if they can't, then it becomes a fascinating question of, do they draft a guy next year, or is it just Tom Brady who comes on, as the quarterback, as was originally planned, along with Sean Payton? We'll see. Which then, of course, brings me to the Bills. Obviously, a betting Super Bowl favorite. I don't know how much stock I put into that. I obviously know they're a good team. That's my home team, and I feel like I'll address this first. The difference between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson is that Josh Allen has a top 5 arm, and quite frankly, he's the best player in the league, and quite frankly, he's probably one of the 5 best quarterbacks to ever play. I don't know if there's ever been a collection of traits put into one quarterback as was put into Josh Allen. So, the the wide receiver core maybe looks a little weak. Gabe Davis has to prove himself when he's not wide receiver 5 and he's not the beneficiary of getting all of those, schemed touches and all those touches that are dictated because everyone else is being covered, double covered. So we'll see how he handles that because everyone's last, memory of him is the Chiefs game. So we'll see. Bills offensive line, best offensive line they've ever put in front of Josh Allen. If they can stay healthy. The Bills were, I believe, top 5 last year in pressures, talking about the defensive line. But you know what? They couldn't get any closers. They don't have any closers. So they went out, they got Von Miller. They got 5 new defensive linemen altogether. Linebackers are solid. And obviously Trey White's injury, we'll see what happens with that. He's on schedule, and on schedule seems to be week 1 against the Rams. Now we'll see if that's for sure. They've got the best safety tandem in the league, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer. I think that, anywhere from 11-6 to 15-2 is possible. I'm sticking with 13-4. I believe Josh Allen, if everything goes according to plan, because if you look at the Bills, totally wide receiver centric offense. They were 29th in passes to tight ends. They were 30th in passes to running backs. And if you take away Josh Allen's rushing yards, they're 31st last year in terms of rushing offense. So with the additions of James Cook, Dawson Knox another year, maybe OJ Howard, this could be an offense that expands, instead of, let's say, vertically, it expands horizontally. You combine all those elements in together, and I believe that if things go very, very well, that Josh Allen can go for 6,000 yards combined from scrimmage and 60 touchdowns. Now, let's get to the Patriots. One of the absolutely worst rosters in football. It's time to get rid of Bill Belichick. It's obvious that all his cute stuff that he does was really allowed for him to do because he had Tom Brady, the best quarterback ever. Suddenly, without Tom Brady, he doesn't look like a genius, and he's starting to look like he's overrated and old. Great defensive coordinator, terrible general manager, and slightly overrated head coach. I think their roster's terrible. No idea what they're doing. No idea what they did in the draft. And I think that they're going to finish in the bottom 10 in terms of draft order.
I'll tell you what. When I look at this division, I think it's interesting to say the least. The Miami situation. It's been a dumpster fire of an offseason, other than the free agent additions. We know about the firing of Flores, the whole lawsuit thing, the docking of draft picks for tanking, et cetera, et cetera. Tyreek Hill was one of their shining lights of their offseason. But I think they put themselves in a situation where you had a chance to be an ascending team had you stuck by your guns, trusted your draft board. If you believe Tua was the guy, you got to, first of all, give him an offensive line to protect him so he stays healthy. They haven't done enough of that. They're getting there. Okay. But you don't even know what he is. You haven't had a full season out of him. First, it was Ryan Fitzpatrick is the better guy. He's going to help us win. We knew what Ryan Fitzpatrick was. That was the waste of a season. You bring him back next year. He comes out there. You're off to a bad start. He gets hurt. He comes back. You start winning again. But this has got to be all in. You got to go all in on him. You got to have your head coach believe that this is going to be the guy. We got all these receivers. We got all of this stuff to try and help this young man win. It's got to be his year, and he's got to play out these last 2 years of his deal. You got to figure out if it's a fifth year options coming up, if it's worth it, right? So he's got to play it out. So you got to do everything you can to give him the opportunity to show you he's the guy you drafted. The Jets have to do the same thing, but he's already hurt. So the question for them is, do you make a move for a veteran that you really can't bring in there because you put everything on your young quarterback? Because everybody goes, oh, go get Jimmy G. You bring Jimmy G in there, and Jimmy G wins. New York is not going to want Zach Wilson. And I'm not talking about the front office. I'm talking about the fans. You're causing a problem in that locker room if Jimmy G comes in there and wins. If this is Zach Wilson's team, well, guess what? You believe Joe Flacco is your backup quarterback. He's your backup quarterback till this young man gets back. If he's not, then you better get yourself another gap starter that's probably on somebody's roster sitting somewhere until he comes back. But you can't do that Jimmy G stuff, because I guarantee you right now, you bring Jimmy G in there to New York and he wins, Zach Wilson is going to be this next Sam Darnold out of there. All right. So New England, that situation is a whole nother one. Okay. You drafted this quarterback. He came in, McDaniels got him to play well in the second half of the season. You made the playoffs and you fizzled out because the team wasn't good enough. And now you're back. You made a couple of changes at wide receiver. I wouldn't say they're overtly a better receiver room than they were before, but I will tell you this much. I thought Mac Jones would be a good quarterback. I didn't think he was better than the guys he was drafted ahead of. I do think, however, I do think that he is a quality starter, not a great starter. And overall, they will probably be a team right where they were last year. 9, 10 wins, but they're not going back to those Super Bowl years, those early Tom Brady years. Their defense isn't good enough. It's not anywhere close to the early Tom Brady years where Tom Brady didn't have to do anything but drive the bus. Okay? Those New England teams are long gone. They could be very good. They could be quality. They could be bad, as we saw the year when they had Cam. All right? But overall, they're not going to be Super Bowl New England teams anymore. Buffalo has all the tools it takes to make that big run, to take that big step, except for the running game. And at some point, you do need a running game. It would have come in handy in that playoff loss last year to Kansas City. Had you gotten the lead and been able to sit on it a little bit and not give them the ball back. But they weren't able to do that. It's all on Josh Allen and that defense. And if the defense isn't getting it done, that's always the situation you're going to fall into is, can the defense hold up enough while Josh Allen is scoring his points? That's the question for you guys. You're going to face some firepower in the playoffs, especially out of the AFC West. If you can't stop the run, we saw what Tennessee can do to a team. Tennessee's still going to have a very strong running game. They're going to have quality young receivers. They're in trouble when you think about it, quarterback-wise. Their quarterback doesn't want to give up his job. That young man behind him is hungry. So better believe if he struggles because of the receiving changes, don't be surprised there's a young quarterback in Tennessee driving him to the playoffs with that running game. So overall, I do think Buffalo's division. How far Buffalo goes, that is the question.
No, let me highlight this for a minute. Let's put this thing down, flip it, and reverse it. Did you say Josh Allen is the best player in the league in top 5?
What's that?
Did you say Josh Allen is the best player in the league and top 5 quarterback ever?
Sure. He's definitely the best player in the league.
What?
Okay. What? I mean, I'm not a guy who has like Mahomes go crazy that one year, right? And then just like
Mahomes is going crazy every year.
No, he hasn't. Like he really hasn't. I'll pull him up right now on Pro Football Reference. He's not gone crazy every year. He throws tons of interceptable balls all the time. They just don't get caught.
I can say the same about Josh Allen.
They get caught. Josh Allen's get caught. I'm not denying that. Like, go watch the games. He's throwing in a triple to hit the guys in the hands all the time. I'm not going to live off his reputation from what he did 4 years ago and be like, oh my God, just based on that 1 year. Like people do that all the time. Like Lamar, he won the MVP. Oh, okay. He won the MVP. Like, so what? Like it doesn't, like it's traits, man. Like the MVP isn't based on who has the best traits. Like, come on.
We will very much have to agree to disagree on that one. That is a boiling take.
I listen. I like it. It's got the juices flowing.
26 touchdowns the year after that year.
The juices going. I mean, it's an intelligent debate. I mean,
he hasn't gone over 40 touchdowns since. Come on.
Does he need to? I mean, he's made the 4 straight AFC championships. Doesn't
I don't
matter
know.
if he throws
Like,
40
are they
yards
playing
down?
the games and then Mahomes like, hey, you know what? I don't even need to throw this touchdown pass. I'll just throw it out of bounds because what? I mean, what? They just throw touchdowns, and I don't think they're consciously trying to not throw touchdowns because whatever. Like, you throw the pass, the guy catches it, he tries to get in the end zone.
I will say Josh Allen is definitely the ascending player. When I evaluated him coming out of Wyoming, I said he had a high ceiling and a very low floor. Because high ceiling because the talent was there. It's undeniable. He was very raw mechanically, and you saw it in his throws. They were all over the map.
Absolutely. He was terrible.
Yeah.
I hated him his first 2 years.
Yeah, and he's improved. He is definitely improved. So, with
But
no
even
doubt
some
about it.
guy, the best player in the league, top 5 quarterback ever.
Sure.
Ever.
Sure. Who's ever had this combination? He's 6'5", 245. They run QB power on him all the time. He's got a top 5 arm. He can shrug off anybody. He can take the hits. Not that they play in an era where hits happen, because it doesn't happen. I mean, he can read a defense. Obviously, he can call plays.
Okay, so what you're saying is he could be a top 5 quarterback ever.
I think traits-wise, he's top 5.
Wait, what?
But I understand that, like, you have to, like, play in the league for a certain time and get voted in the Pro Bowl a bunch of times by fans, or whatever before.
No, it's not Pro Bowl. It's playoff success, and he still needs to prove that.
Well, I mean, there's some guys who don't have a lot of playoff success.
Get to
They're in the
Super
Hall of
Bowl,
Fame,
top
aren't
5
they?
all time. That's huge. That's a big statement.
Listen, I'm not even gonna get into all com. He's still too new for me. Currently in the league, he is definitely up there. If you saw my quarterback rankings, if you haven't, go back to nutsandboltsports.com. My top 10 quarterback rankings in the league right now are still up there somewhere. So by all means, it's a great read. Enjoy. Listen, Josh Allen's top 5, top 10 quarterback, no doubt about it. There's still guys ahead of him. One of them is on vacation down here in Tampa. Amazing how the guy can do that. Go on vacation during training camp, by the way. Anyway, so I digress. That's a whole other conference. We're not talking about that conference right now.
I got personal things to take care of. So
listen,
I got a meeting in Miami.
You win somebody a Super Bowl, you get to take that time off. Yes, Jeff George was a hell of a quarterback, other than what was between his ears.
Not to mention Randall Cunningham, who doesn't get the respect that he should.
That's another one. But with that being said, it's almost time to wrap it up. So, favorites to come out of the AFC. Everybody take 30 seconds. Tell me who your favorite team is coming out of the AFC before we wrap this up.
I mean, for me, it's obviously the Bills. I think their offense is just going to go crazy. And I think, the defense, I do believe there was a little smoke and mirrors involved with the defense. Like I said, top 5 in pressures. They couldn't really close it. It's not as bad as you think when it comes to the sacks, but they didn't have that one guy who, when you needed to chase down a guy with 13 seconds left to play, could get the job done. They got Von Miller. Look for Ed Oliver to blossom a little bit as well. Greg Rousseau, solid run defender. I think Tremaine Edmonds will have his best, season now that they've got some better guys, clogging up the line. Look, the offense has the potential to go crazy. The defense has the potential to be even better than they were. The scheme does a lot of work. They really want to dictate where teams are throwing the ball, a lot of length there with Edmonds. So I think the Bills come out of the AFC. I think they get to the Super Bowl. I am not going to pick them to win the Super Bowl. That's too much of a homer thing for me. I think it's widely acknowledged that they probably get to the Super Bowl, but I'm not going to pick them to win. So whoever's going to come out of the NFC, I'll pick them to win the Super Bowl.
Melo, you got a take on that one? Who's coming out of the AFC before we go?
Was the question who's going to come out the AFC as a whole?
Who's your favorite to come out of the AFC as a whole?
I got Buffalo coming out the AFC as a whole. I believe they got everything that it takes to get there. They learned a lot. Josh Allen improved. Like I said, that defense, the run game, something that they've been lacking. I believe Cook going to bring some stability with that. And McDermott as a coach, I think he's one of the best out there coaching right now. So I do have Buffalo coming out the AFC.
I am torn between three teams. One being Buffalo, the other being Cincinnati. 50% home run Nixon and 50%. I know how good they are. I think the Broncos, with their defense and the running game they have with Javonte Williams, could shock a lot of people, especially come playoff time with a running game that can travel. The problem with the Broncos is their division is just they're going to have some injuries. I'll just put it that way. And the team I have fourth is the Chiefs, but I feel like they're going to have some injuries because they play in that same division. I think I'm going to go with the Bengals to repeat and come out of the AFC just because their offensive line has improved and their running game is better than Buffalo's. And running game still matters, whether people want to believe it or not.
Well, I'm going to start by saying this. I do not believe the Bengals will be back next year. I said that during our Super Bowl coverage leading up to the Super Bowl last year. I said they will not be back here anytime soon. I do believe they will fall off a bit. However, there's a team with a very talented roster in Baltimore who seems to keep winning. However, because of said offensive coordinator that can't seem to figure out how to get a dynamic passing game, despite the fact that you have a stud at quarterback, you have a stud at running back, you have a young stud at receiver, you have a stud tight end. If all you have is play action passes and running game, you're not going to win in the playoffs versus the teams you're facing. So they will not come out of said conference. There will be no Baltimore Ravens in the Super Bowl this time. There will be no Ray Lewis dancing to lead them out. That's just not happening. All right. So Buffalo is definitely a feature. But until you beat the man, you got to go with the man, and that is the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are the dude, 5 straight AFC Championship appearances. Only the Patriots have knocked them off in that game, other than last year when the Bengals did. All right. So I expect them to go back one more time, whether it's Buffalo, whether it's Tennessee, whoever it is gets there. If they don't knock off Kansas City, it's Kansas City again. You got to beat Kansas City to me. I think they're going to be battle tested from that division. As long as they're healthy, Kansas City will be back.
I'll be honest. I think they are as well, but I'm not picking them because they'll run me out of the state if I pick them to go back to the Super Bowl. But yeah, it's until someone beats them, what are you going to do?
Yeah. You know, everybody uses the Ric Flair line to beat a man. You got to beat the man. Yeah. Unfortunately, sometimes it's just like with my college football rankings. People want to put Bama 1. Well, I don't think Georgia fell off that much that you're going to just naturally dump them over. I think Georgia will be right there. They had enough depth on that defense with a lot of those guys leaving for the pros. They are still number 1 until otherwise say. They haven't shown until further ado, right? They didn't fall off enough to say they're not number 1, in my opinion. Well, right now, I would believe in Bengals a lot more. I think it was a great run for them last year. We've always seen that one team makes a great run, and guess what? They're not seen back at that point again. That was their run last year. It was a great Cinderella story. Turned into a pumpkin. Maradona hit their quarterback on that 4th down. So with that being said, it was a wrap. It goes back to them go through Kansas City. You beat Kansas City, you have every right to go to the Super Bowl. And with that being said, guys, we said it would go. We wouldn't hit the 45-minute mark. Said we would exceed it. We said we exceeded, and we did it. We got an hour and 10 minutes of content in there. We hope you enjoyed every minute of it. So, Charlie, where can everybody find your work? Because it was some amazing takes tonight. You fired everybody up. You got everybody in the chat room, the panelists. You know. I could swear if I died and went to heaven, they'd be saying, "What did Charlie say?" So, by all means, where can they find your work?
Well, if you want to block me on Twitter, you can do that at ttp_Charlie. You see in the back here behind me, I own my own production company. This is the YouTube channel 12 Squared. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is because I own an NFL analytics company called Trust the Process Analytics. I do a Buffalo Bills podcast called Humble and Hungry. I'm writing Bills articles. You can find those on nutsandboltsports.com. I also have a NFL podcast. I'm going to do an NFL live stream at some point. Got a lot of stuff going on. We've got player grades. We've got a new completion percentage metric. I'm a alumni of the Scouting Academy, so I'll be doing some draft scouting reports, big boards, mock drafts, all that kind of stuff. I've got a new analytic metric about draft hit rate and all that kind of stuff. But yes, my work will be on nutsandboltsports.com, all the written stuff. The other stuff, just follow me on Twitter, and we'll be all over the place with all kinds of content for you all football season long up until the middle of February, when Buffalo Bills will play somebody in the Super Bowl.
All right, Melo, where can they find your work?
I couldn't hear you, Jeff. That didn't come through.
No problem.
But I'm here
This
with Nuts and Bolts Sports.
There you go.
You can find me on all social media. You can find me on all social media. Score Melo Williams. Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great, and I'm looking forward to talking more football.
Definitely. Keith, we know you're not with the Stones anymore, man. So let them know where they can find you.
Oh, yeah. So at 5280 Keith, we'll be continuing my Broncos coverage. Got the Nuggets as well. But really working on my baby right now, which is the Colorado Rapids MLS team. We got coverage with the Rapids. We got Steve doing Minnesota, Joe doing DC United. So definitely be sure to check out our MLS coverage because we're trying to get that up and rolling. And I'll be at the Rapids game on Saturday and pretty much every game for the rest of the season.
All right. And, of course, I am Jeff Barnes. You can catch us, me and Bill Carroll, starting in January, new episodes of Nuts and Bolts Sports Draft Central. Until then, I'll be running around the college football landscape, scouting players for the draft next year. Also, you'll find some of my work on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on here, whatever pieces I can throw in there to keep up with these young gentlemen on my screen who are constantly throwing out new content while I'm running around in, if not a sideline, a football stadium somewhere. So nevertheless, if you see me on the road, feel free to grab me, take a picture. I'm only this pretty for so long. So, but nevertheless, it's been a great show. Guys, it's been a pleasure. Charlie, Melo, it's the first time I got a chance to work with you guys. Can't wait to do more work with you. Keith, man, it's been too long. We gotta get back on again another time, man. Yeah,
just living that dad life.
Yeah. Well, you got the small kids, man.
Yeah, she's big. Since you last seen, want me bring her in real quick?
Yeah, sure.
We'll go grab her real quick.
Yes. So, yes, we're still a family show, folks. We're still a family show.
I told mine to go away. I'm doing a live show. Get out of here.
See. He's still got the young ones. Mine are getting to the point now.
There you go.
I'm a few years away from freedom. Oh, still adorable. Still adorable.
Say hi. Say hi. Come on. And then there's my other one.
Yes.
Living that dad life.
And now somebody's getting big.
Yeah. Yeah, they both are.
Yeah, it's It's getting to the point where you're going to start saying that 3-letter word, job. Well, we're glad you got the chance to bring the family on, man. And it's going to be a great and an amazing season, with all the intrigue, with all the moves made. I can't wait for it. I know you guys can't. Thanks for watching. It's been an amazing show, and we'll be back with more here on Nuts and Bolts Sports. Thanks again, everybody. Take care and have a great night. God bless.